hello, and welcome to episode 101 of Gondor Calls for Ale, a Middle-earth strategy battle games podcast. I am your host, Sam Gallagher, and with me in this episode is my brother, Ben.
Hello, listeners and viewers. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks. As always, if this is your first episode or your 101st episode or any number in between, thank you for joining. And Ben, as is tradition, I don't know what we're quite saying, as is required perhaps with every Gondor Calls for Ale episode, it is the ale. So what are you drinking for this mighty fine episode?
Well, for this 101st episode, Sam, I have cracked open myself a Glorfindale. A true ale of the West, indeed, said to grant its imbibers a +1 to wound against monsters.
I see. Very good.
What about you, Sam? What are you drinking for this 101st episode?
Well, Ben, I am having myself a tree beard, a slow brewed ale, not for hasty folk.
Yes, takes a long time to brew, indeed, I'm sure.
Yes, it does. It's not for the hasty, which, being hasty folk ourselves, Ben, we are already moving rapidly, hastily on from the ale segment of Gondor Calls for Ale into the meat and potatoes. So, do you want to tell the listener, tell the viewer what we are talking about in this fine episode?
Well, we're going to start this episode, as we have done with many episodes. We're going to start this episode off with a hobby highlight from our community. If you would like to see your miniatures and hobby highlights featured in our episodes, do check out our Discord. There's a link to that in the description of this video. You can post in the channel for Frodo, aka the podcast, to get your pictures featured up here. I'm out of pictures at the moment, so send them on in, guys. Let's see what you've all been painting in the new year. Once we get through that, we are going to dive into talking about some different armies and matchups that we could film battle reports for. Sam put out a post recently saying that our hard drive had broken and we've lost a couple of battle reports that we were getting ready to release. Fear not, we're getting ready, we're gearing up to get ready and film some more, but we've fallen off schedule for producing battle reports. So Sam put out a post and a bunch of people rallied with suggestions for things that we could film. So we're going to talk through that a little bit and see what we can see.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into some hobby highlights. The most listener-friendly segment of every Gondor Calls for Ale episode.
Yes, as soon as my... why can I not progress the slideshow, Sam? All right, there we go. Sorry about that. We are back, and here is our hobby highlight, Sam. We are kicking it off with none other than Theoden in foot and mounted. Old metal Theoden, and he looks fantastic. Is there a conversion here? Does he normally have his sword up in the air?
Yes, this is, and the mounted version is just or the dismount is just entirely converted. Because that's a new plastic Warrior of Rohan. So this is, for those listening, this is Theoden as Road to Helm's Deep, so no armor Theoden. I'm not overly familiar with that model. I know I don't think there was ever a foot version of it, but I think you're correct. I think he usually has his sword in the air. So I think that sword down is a conversion, and then, as I said, the foot version is one of the new Warriors of Rohan. He looks great.
Cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah, nice. And on into some more Rohan, we have some sweet royal guard.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, they do look great. They do fall prey to the classic miniature wargaming trap of those shields would weigh about 50 pounds. For the scale, the thickness of the shields are wild, but they're painted beautifully. They look lovely. Just need to paint in those base rims, but very, very cool. I assume these. No, I know these are 3D sculpts or 3D prints.
I'm not quite sure which 3D sculptor does these, but understand why the Royal Guard on foot are not the best ones. And then I stole this from our other channel. This wasn't posted for the Frodo page, but I love the paint job on this miniature so much, Sam, that I had to throw him up here and share him. This is Nazthrak, the Orc Captain. Angmar, super cool model. I just think it's
Yeah, he
really
looks
nicely made.
awesome. I really like the brown tunic that's got a lot of green in it. I think it's very cool. You can really see it on that arm where in the shadows it's very green.
Hmm.
Yeah, he looks absolutely smashing.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic, good stuff. So just had to share that because he is so cool. There's some other submissions from the guy that painted this over in that channel as well. Worth checking out.
Yeah,
And that is it for our hobby highlight today, Sam.
yeah. So I was just going to say, as Ben has already said, if you would like to see your videos, definitely check out the link in the description of this episode to join our Patreon. Oh, not Patreon, that too. That'll come in a minute. But to join our Discord. There is plenty of excellent hobby and discussion going on there a fair amount of the time, which is really cool. While we're talking about this and Ben stops presenting his screen, I'm going to use the time to plug our Discord, as I already had a bit of a Freudian slip for that. So if you're enjoying this podcast or any of our content, be those YouTube battle reports, be those Sam's Workbench Wednesdays, or any other sort of thing, and you want to support us in a financial way, please consider doing so by checking out our Patreon. There's a link in the description of wherever you're watching or listening to this video. We have a range of tiers with some fun rewards. One of which is a monthly hobby hang with Ben and Sam. And any of our Patreons who choose to join. So that's super fun and is what really enables us to make this content. We want to thank all of our Patreons, past, present, and future. Your financial support is always appreciated and never expected. There we go. I think that is all of the plugs and adverts and whatnot out of the way, Ben. So time to move on into the greatest tragedy of our time, up there with
I know, isn't it just?
the Neonad Arnoidiath, the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. This was the hard drive of Unnumbered Tears. So yeah, in case you are listening and or not paying attention, or this is your first episode, I am in a different location than usual. I'm out of town for a couple of weeks and brought the hard drive that I save all of the files. So basically we film, I immediately remove the files from the video cards and stick them on a hard drive. Brought the hard drive. I don't know what happened. I don't know whether it was traveling in a plane. I don't know whether, I don't know. I don't know whether it was just on its last legs. But alas, I went to start editing the video and the hard drive was dead, did not work. I tried what I could to get it up and running. I'm in a location that's doesn't abound with technical stores and such, so not even really a chance to take it to somebody and see if they could retrieve that data, which tragically meant we lost a battle report. So last week we would have been releasing a battle report that was half edited already, and all the files were on that hard drive, so they're all gone. No more.
Gone, precious. Gone.
Yeah, to the halls of their ancestors, perhaps. So yeah, that was a real disappointing. We've now done 101 episodes of a podcast where we haven't missed a single week, or we haven't missed a single release in our schedule, and at I think 26 or so battle reports we missed one, so that's kind of disappointing. For the weird human that I am, I like to keep that rolling, but it is what it is. Lessons have learned. I will now have at least one, if not two hard drives. I might have a working hard drive and a backup hard drive. I will also definitely use cloud storage, which I probably should have, but it feels like these kind of things do plague anyone who creates content. It feels inevitable that you run into the sound was corrupted, the whole thing was out of focus or whatever. So we live, we learn, and we will be back next week with another battle report. So in the meantime, while we sort of decided a few episodes ago we were going to try and do some more talky episodes and less just reporting on tournaments. We thought we got such a good response to the post I made saying like, hey, tragedy has struck, our hard drive's down, no battle report this week, but let me know in the comments what you would be interested in seeing on the channel. We thought it might be kind of fun to chat about, to sort of chat about those responses. So do we have the army? Do we not? Do we need to, paint a few more? Why we think this would or wouldn't be fun, and so on and so forth. Sound about right then?
Sounds about right to me, Sam. You want to take it away? I've got the comments on my phone here, but I think on your laptop they're maybe a little more organized. So do you want to take us away? What was the first suggestion suggested?
Well, I'm not sure if it's the first one showing up on my thread of comments. So we've got Return of the King. It feels like it's been overlooked this edition, but it's really good now. Fight 4, move 8 ghosts. Are the ghosts really fight 4?
They get +1 fight if they're within 3 inches of Aragorn.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that is definitely a possibility. Hilariously, I have a army of ghosts, but they're all glued to a display board. They weren't originally glued to a display board. I made a display board that I wanted some ghosts on, so I ripped them all off their basing. I didn't actually love the bases I'd done, and glued them to the display board. So it's definitely been a thing.
On the display board, they're like really, we really wanted, Sam needed them to be clustered together. They just looked like a swarm of ghosts if you really pack them in there, tight them together on bases. So they really had to come off their bases. It's Aragorn at the Blackstone of Arak summoning the ghosts. So to fulfill their roles. But maybe we should get some more ghosts or break down and pull them off that display. It's just such a cool display.
Yeah.
I mean, Return of the King would be a cool one to see on the channel.
Yeah, definitely, and definitely easy. We have the 3 hunters done. I have, they're not finished, but I have the King of the Dead, and the heralds are all base coated, and the ghosts are so quick to paint. And I do think it's a really cool army. Interesting. So, what would be if we were gonna have a Return of the King matchup? What would be the most ideal matchup, do you think? What would you...
Well, I mean, the most thematic matchup would either be Pelennor Fields with a Mumakil or Corsairs, neither of which I think would make for a particularly... I mean, Corsairs could be... We don't have Corsairs, and we're unlikely to get a whole army of Corsairs put together to face off against Ghosts anytime soon.
Yeah, the Ghosts are certainly easier to get done than the Corsairs, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think something with some monsters in it is actually an interesting matchup, because the Ghosts can definitely kill a troll. But trolls also stand a pretty good chance of killing ghosts, because the one thing I find about fighting ghosts is you can put a lot of resources into trying to kill them, and they're just defense ain't really tough for basic warriors to kill.
Yeah, and it's the same. It's an army that can take Legolas, and so you probably should take Legolas. But Legolas is a fairly, for what we want to do. It'd be one thing if we were just like, this is competitive Lord of the Rings. This is what we want to show. And what we want to play, you take Legolas and that's fine. You just deal with it. But it does make the...
We could put a lot of line of... So we haven't had Legolas on the channel. We could put a lot of line of sight blocking stuff out on the board to just make him less of a power piece.
Didn't we have a Legolas in Grey Company versus... the Rise of the Necromancer? I think we had a Legolas, but certainly not in a match that he can shoot heroes off horses and stuff.
Yeah, we did have you're right, we did have a Legolas there. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Well, we have another suggestion of Wolves of Isengard versus Road to Helm's Deep. I think that would be super cool.
That would be super cool.
That is just I have some number of Orc Warg Riders, just not that many.
Yeah, I think you've got 6, 8.
No, I think it's about 12. How many more did I do? I can't remember. I had some number done for my Isengard army.
Oh, that's right.
And then I used some of them in Burdur's Horde, and I can't remember when I converted new ones, if I did enough to fully replace those. So if I had 6 in the list, I think I've got 10, but they're cheap. The heroes in that list are cheap, and you needed, probably need, I don't know,
30 odd.
Yeah, 20 to 30. And then Road to Helm's Deep, I guess, is sort of just painting up that unarmored Theoden. Probably you want
Aragon.
Aragon on horse, yeah, and
Hammer on foot. Or do you have to take him?
I don't, I don't know. I don't think you do, but Legolas and Gimli on horse was the one I was actually thinking of.
Oh, that would be a cool model. I have that model, but it's not painted.
Yeah, yeah, that would certainly
Something
be,
to work towards down the road for sure.
yeah, yeah. I think it's and I like that's the interesting thing about. It is an interesting thing about like some of those kind of armies, like Walls of Isengard would be super cool. I'm probably never going to play it outside of that, and it just ends up being like a fair amount of painting to do for how many games are that interesting to have the Wolves of Isengard play in, or like Road to Helm's Deep, in a world where I have unlimited time and get everything painted, like yeah, that would be great. But in a world where it's like, oh, just add a few heroes, it's not that, right? It is paint a whole new army, and if that's the case, then I might rather paint a Lothlorien army because we don't have one of those, and I think it'll be cool. We don't have a single elf army, so I think that would be cool. Fords of the Eisen was suggested twice. I think that would be cool, and that sort of paint a Grimbold and Theodred. Gives me an excuse to paint that new Theodred sculpt. That would be super sick.
Yeah, get Elfhelm out there.
Yeah.
Get that dismount. I need to get that dismount painted. One of my last year's New Year's resolutions.
Oh yeah.
They did not get done.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely a neat army. My struggle with all of the Rohan armies, I think, for me is that I have like 50 something warriors of Rohan on foot painted.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 12 riders. I've got a decent number of them, but they're all on snow bases, and it's a really tough choice. Do I commit to doing the rest of the Rohan stuff? Am I just like, well, all of my Rohan is on snow bases, or which doesn't feel like it makes sense for Fords of the Eisen or some of that other stuff, or do I basically have to repaint a Rohan army to get it so it's like not a much painting or a lot of painting, or I paint the heroes and we figure out what you've got. And
I will say painting Rohan, they're definitely on my painting bench, but I've got a couple other armies that I'm more excited about playing first, so they're naturally going to come first.
Cirith Ungol, definitely going to happen at some point in time. It's just about the timing.
Super excited for that. Sam started working on that army. He's been doing some conversions. If you haven't, check out his hobby videos. He goes over some of his conversions and progress on Shelob and unboxing Shelob and stuff on the workbench. So definitely worth checking out. The army will absolutely be appearing on the channel. So look forward to that.
Yeah. The Halls of Thranduil versus Army of the Dragon Emperor. That's one that I would love to do. Halls of Thranduil and some Easterlings at some point in time, but again, they are two armies that neither of us actually own. So
yeah, you were talking about doing Easterlings for Nova. So
yeah,
would be super cool.
Yeah, no, I mean we're March, and that's September, so
yes,
it is not.
It'll be a while before we see any of those on the channel.
Yeah, and it's just about. I think that's one of the interesting things about filming battle reports and worth talking about is the sort of lead time of how we're currently doing it, which may change, but because Ben lives in Canada and isn't around as much, we tend to have to film some number and then release those and then film some more. And so, for an example, like the next 3 or 4 we release, we will film now. will film in the next couple of weeks. So even though the Kirathungal army is fairly close to being done, I'm not going to get it done before Adepticon, and therefore it probably won't feature in the next one of the next 4 battle reports.
Yeah.
Then so it sort of it pushes that stuff off, and it's where's the, I have limited time. I play other games. I want to get more games on the channel. I think that would be super fun. That's something I'm looking forward to doing. I really enjoy filming battle reports. And so it's painting Kirathungal, for an example, doesn't do much for our collection as a whole. There aren't that many other armies that are going to use those pieces in an interesting way. Like, yeah, there are some of the Mordor soup armies, but it's not like Rohan's a great example. If I wanted to do a non-snow Rohan army, it would suddenly unlock 6 different lists that, as long as we had those heroes done, it's like, cool, great, that does
for
something.
sure.
And it's the kind of like, where's the trade-off of, hey, for the next month I'm going to paint Easterlings to get, and that Easterlings is 2 armies, so that's like not bad, versus I can paint in the next month, I can paint a million different heroes, and suddenly it's like, oh, well, we can do a army of Edoras with New Helm and Hera and all of those new heroes. Yep. And we can do Fords of the Eisen, and we can do that, so it's that it's that interesting thing. And then on top of that, it's like trying to paint to get so we're not always just on the same tables. There's like there's a fair amount of there's a lot of work on the hobby end of it that goes in, and it's interesting because I see why a lot of the big channels, and it's typically 40K, right, have just pay somebody on staff or commission armies, because it's
full-time job.
Yeah, I mean, it's work to go into filming, editing, all of that. Which sort of, given that I work full-time, uses the same amount of time, or the same like chunk of time that I would be hobbying, now splits into doing some of the editing, splits into doing the filming. I love it. Yep. It's absolutely awesome. It's just it makes me think about it in a different way, where rather than being like, oh, I'm excited, I've got this event, I'm just going to paint this whole army. It's like, well, does it make sense to do that versus, because that's the other thing, is I'll get excited about Kirathungal, but then you don't want the next 6 games to involve Kirathungal, because it's not that interesting.
It's true.
And then there's stuff too where it's like, cool, let's do a Lothlorien army, paint a Lothlorien army, and it's like, well, it kind of would be cool if we had a Lothlorien table, and the first time they show up on the channel, it's on a Lothlorien table.
Yeah, that would be sick.
Or it's like, I want to do one of the matchups I'd love to do. I have a notes on my phone of games that we should work towards playing. Is like Moria versus dwarves, and obviously they want to be on a
Khazad-dûm. You want to have Khazad-dûm versus Moria in Khazad-dûm, yeah. So there can be proper drums in the deep, Sam.
Yeah, and that is the other interesting thing too, which has always been I won't say issue, but always been one of my struggles with Middle Earth. Is previously it was because of the ally system, and now it's because some of the stuff like orcs go in so many different armies. But the stuff with like Warriors of Minas Tirith now go in a bunch of different armies, and the Warriors of Minas Tirith I've done are all on tiled flagstone basing.
Yeah, I would actually be curious. Is there anyone listening who is offended by the mismatched bases in some of our games? In some of our, it sort of bothers Sam a little bit.
It does.
I don't know how much it really bothers me.
There is just that.
Breaks the continuity for you. I hear it. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just think of it in the same way that like a tactical rock is dumb, because this dude you think about basing is really stupid. The guy's dragging this specific thing along with him.
Sure, yeah.
Always standing on it, and so it's it's just weird. I think if we were more into the we're competitive, we're making always the competitive choices, and we're trying to do that, and we do more of we did a top-down thing, it's actually kind of good, because it's like, oh, this is a Warrior of Minas Tirith, he's on a sandy colored disc.
Yes, yeah.
But given that we try and sell a narrative a little
As
bit.
ridiculous as that narrative may be.
Yeah, precisely. So, yeah, so that's sort of some of the stuff I think that's interesting to think about with that, or some of the stuff that perhaps we think about that one may not in the world of filming. And I think it was one of the reasons we were able to eventually do battle reports was because for 3-4 years prior to releasing the first one, that's the only game we basically played.
And you have like severe army ADD. You're like, well, I got this one done and I took it to an event, so I'm done with it now. So I'll do another one, and which is, I mean, thank God you did, right? Because I basically played 2 armies for 3 years, which had some variations and different flavors, but essentially it was Gundabad and Environs and a little bit of Minas Tirith, and that was kind of it.
But it makes you. It's certainly been something I've been thinking about, like painting old world stuff, and be like, it would be really cool to do some old world battle reports. And I'm like, fuck, that's a lot of models.
Oh my god!
I wrote a 500-point list that was the same number of, was more models than my 800-point, like Gundabad army I'd built or something. It's like 2 20-man units, and you're like, well, that's more than the Lord of the Rings army right there. But it is the kind of thing where it's like, it's hard. Do I spend the next year doing nothing but painting old world armies and get up to like 4 armies and then have a bunch of variation on the, or is it like, well, move into try and get more guests on to film games and stuff, and they bring their own army, and that's how you get some of the flavor, which I think is something that we are considering and looking into. So if filming a battle report with Gondor Calls for Ale is something that piques your fancy, do let us know.
Yeah. Oh, actually, Sam, speaking of, is this a good time to mention that we're going to be at Adepticon in the coming weeks, possibly filming games?
Yeah. I checked in with Ray after doing a terrible job of submitting my army lists and all manner and registering for the events. Whoops, sorry if you're listening. That was, my bad. But I did check in with him and see if he minded if we did some filming on the tables on Thursday, as long as we were out of everybody's way. And he was like, yeah, no problem. But there is plenty of stuff going on there, so I don't know how possible or not it will be. They've got their Masters, right? Oh no, the last chance qualifier for Masters, the battle companies, some other stuff. So, we'll have to see. But hopefully that is the plan, that we can get in there and play a film and play a couple games.
Yeah. So if you're at Adepticon and interested in being a guest on the show, bring an army and do battle with samurai. Probably me. I think I need to get some practice with my Khan Doom in. So.
Yeah. And the last time we did filming at a convention, I played both the games, so only fair that
it's true. We
got a little more Ben. Yeah, so sure, a nice aside there, because I'm just cognizant that reading comments and responding to comments is not the most engaging topic of all time. So Raids on Wings was a suggestion. That's something we talked about doing for the Eagles versus Raids on Wings.
I think that would be an interesting game. It is again one of those things where what are you going to do with 4 Nazgul other than Raids on Wings? And the answer is not much. Having a couple of them done for different army lists would definitely be sick though. So
Realms of Men versus anyone. I think that would be cool. I think this is also where my hatred of the different basing comes in, because it would be. I think right now my Realms of Men would just be Minas Tirith led by Kings of Men and Captains, which is totally cool. Yeah. But it does. It's like I don't want to do the tile bases with either Snow Rohan or not. So it's just that. It's just that sort of like I don't quite know. I don't quite know how to handle that.
Although the Kings of Men, those models would look sweet. I'm picturing the ones in robes would look sweet on those tile bases.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely, for sure. And that's the other thing. I think Realms of Men is a super cool army, and I wish there was more of that, honestly. I wish there was more of the, sort of here, take this king level generic hero, or even the Assault on Helm's Deep, though I don't think they did a very good job with that this time around. Of like, here's a captain, you get one souped up captain. I think I would want to see it at least get +1 wound, +1 attack, +1 to might, will, and fate. So your generic captain becomes 3 attacks, 3 wounds, 3 might, 2 will, 2 fate. I think
that'd be sick.
that would be fine. Maybe there's an argument to like end it gets strike, so you have 1 striking hero in your whatever. But that's the kind of army where it's like it might be worth spending more time to fully plan out and build a proper Realms of Men army.
Yeah.
Be like, I want to do some flavor of Numenor. I'm going to do Numenor and Gondor, and use. I think somebody took it to Throne of Skulls. Did a really cool.
Oh, is that the head swap?
Yeah,
They did the not Arno, sorry.
Numenor.
Numenor, thank you. You just said it.
Yeah.
Numenor head swap onto the Warriors of Minas Tirith.
Yeah,
That was super cool. I had it on the Avenger Walkthrough and everything as well. So it was like a real Numenor army. That was sick.
Yeah, painted it with the black armor with gold trim and stuff. Like something like that would be super cool. But yeah, I mean, and then we had a shout somebody talking about Reclamation. Get Reclamation on the channel. I'm not sure if that's. I assumed it was Osgiliath, but it could be Moria.
Oh, yep. I assumed it was Osgiliath as well.
Which we've had Reclamation of Osgiliath on, so we certainly could have them on again. Azog Hunters and Pits of Dol and Gundabad were also things that people asked about.
Yeah, Pits of Dol definitely something we can do. I think we've actually got that on the sheet to film.
Yeah, we do. It's just, and some of that stuff. I mean, and that's part of the thing, right? With doing again the games that we want to play and record is what's an interesting matchup for that. It's Dol not a particularly strong army, but you also don't want. But like Azog's not bad, and part of the way of handling him and that army is shooting him to death, right? Because he's low defense and the Warg's low defense.
Yep.
But so that which doesn't end up making for a particularly interesting game, but then he's still significantly better than many heroes. So it's where's the balance of that, and we for better or for worse try and keep an even spread of the army, so it's not. It's been a while since we've had this army on. We should get that on again. It's been
we're trying not to be repetitive.
Yeah, and also, and again, we consider like the good versus evil. How much evil versus evil or good versus good can we do? I enjoy them. I think they're silly and they make for entertaining stories, but I totally understand that that's not necessarily what people are looking for in Lord of the Rings. So I would be curious if you're listening or viewing. Let us know how you feel about good versus good and evil versus evil, and how much if you saw or see an army more consistently, how much does that bother you or doesn't that bother you? Or is it just kind of like whatever, you guys are dumb enough and funny enough?
I thought it was interesting how many requests there were for Gundabad or Gundagood was thrown up a couple of times. Yeah. I was like, we feel like we did that all the time, Sam, but apparently people like it. So
I mean,
come back around.
It's been a little while. I mean, we did the Glob's hunt for the catapult troll for sure recently, but before then, I think it was like we did 2 or 3 of them in the first 10, and then it was like, okay,
we haven't done them for a little bit. Yeah.
Well, we're as I wasn't sure how long this subject would last, and we are really still fairly new into an episode, or it's not gone very long. I thought we talked about that we have a filming sheet list, as it were. I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about some of the long-term filming wish lists, and perhaps some of the mayhaps a preview of some of the games that we're hoping to film soon.
I like that idea. I also have on that vein, Sam, I have a question for you.
Okay.
You're hunting that information up now, I assume. So I'm going to ask my question, and hopefully
Yep.
you'll have found your information by then. So we said that when we hit 2,000 subscribers, we were going to play a 2,000 point game.
That
You
is.
and I have talked about it a couple of times since then. Definitely something we are planning on doing. But how are we going to do that? I think we both would like to have some amount of warriors on the table. We don't just want to do 2,000 points where we're going like, aha, look, we've got 40 miniatures.
Yeah.
Because we just took a ton of heroes. It would be kind of cool to see maybe not 100 miniatures aside on the table, but 75 aside or something like that. Could be kind of interesting. Which then led me down this rabbit hole of you talked about the Minas Tirith bases a number of times already this episode. I was like, wow, with a spray paint gun, an airbrush, how fast would it be to paint a bunch of warriors of Minas Tirith, and how many would we need for some ridiculous 2,000 point game?
Yeah. I think some amount of that for me is it sort of depends how quickly we want to get that 2,000 point game, because Ben, we never did give a time frame.
That's true. It's we left ourselves an endless loophole. We could fuck around.
No, the intention was to do it sort of like right around when we hit 2,000.
Yeah, and then people found us much more interesting than we thought we were, and that we've hit that milestone already.
So I think the goal, I think it would be a great goal to have it done before the end of the year. Again, I guess that depends, because you're right. We could just do, X army with 1,000,000 heroes and just do 1,000.
I mean, actually, Return of the King's a relatively good example, right? You could do because you can do the Grey Company in Return of the King, can't you?
Yeah, I think you can. I think you're right. Yeah.
So you just bolt all those heroes on, and then the ghosts are expensive.
Yeah. Or the other one would be something like the Rise of the Necromancer, where you're like, well, 1,000 points of my army is just in heroes, and then it's a bunch of spiders and hunter orcs, and
that's still probably quite a lot of hunter orcs and spiders.
For sure. I do think it would be cool to build it like you were building an army, and
agreed,
and we're playing an actual game. So I think what my dream would be like a Blackgate Opens or an Army of Gothmog kind of thing, where it's just like
a bajillion Morannon orcs versus a bajillion Minas Tirith Tin. I mean, that's what I was thinking too. I'm not going to lie.
Like 120 Morannon orcs, and then you fill in the rest of it with, you take like 3 troll chiefs, a couple of fell beasts, a couple of ring wraiths on fell beasts, and then some trolls, and you're like, I'll take 500 points of monsters and heroes kind of thing, or probably more than that. And then the matchup that works well against that would be Defenders of the Pelennor, and like that's the thing, is we could basically do, or Men of the West, but Men of the West I think would just probably like obliterate that army, but either of the, like, Men of the West, we could probably do 2,000 points now, because we've basically got 1,000 points of Men of the West between Aragorn, the 3 hunters, Rohan heroes, so Eomer, a bunch of warriors of Rohan, some Rohan captains, and then Gwaihir, and I think I've got 6 or so eagles, so that's 750 points worth of eagles, and so like. But that's a similar kind of thing. So I think it really depends. I think it would be fun to do a big, bashy army on that. One of the things we talked about was the Defenders of the Pelennor, because we could probably do like 1,000 points of Rohan, 1,000 points of Minas Tirith, and then the question is what evil army do we face it against? And we had talked about Gundabad, because now I have a 850 point Gundabad army. You've got probably 1,000 points of Gundabad. The biggest issue there is we both like to use Bolg, so we don't. I have an Azog. I could put him on foot, but this would obviously be Glob, so we need to paint some heroes for that, and we've got a bunch of Gundabad trolls and stuff. So that's, I think, the sort of long, short answer of how we do that. Is it really depends. It depends how much we want it to feel like a 2,000 point game.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that would be the appealing thing about it, is it's kind of a silly thing to do, and
it'd be pretty ridiculous just to have. while you were talking, I was writing a 2,000 point Blackgate opens list. I'm not yet done, but it's a lot of dudes, and I'm not at very many points yet.
Yeah,
You can definitely get a lot of warriors in there.
yeah, yeah. I think it was. I think when I wrote it, it was well over 96. I think it was around 130 to 50 odd Moran and Orcs and a bunch of so. Which I mean would be certainly cool. Moran and Orcs is definitely something I would like to add more of because I had I've got 20 to 30 done and it's just sort of like never really enough. Well, while you do that, I'm going to talk about things that things that are, things that were, and things that might
may yet come to pass.
So we're going to start with may yet come to pass, Ben. We're going to talk about some of the games that I would love, in a world where I have unlimited time, money, and whatever else to get these done. I think it would be awesome. I think Ruffians versus Hobbits on a Shire board.
Oh my God, yes. All of the yes, Sam.
Do it 500, 600-ish points and try and get a whole bunch of them in there. I think that would be super fun and very dumb. The last March of the Ents scenario, there's a pretty cool narrative scenario for that. I think that would be fun where you get like all the characters and 6 Ents and you're trying to destroy a dam. One of the ones we talked about, which was Raids on Wings versus Eagles. That would be one that would be cool to try, I think. I think indie playing the game process, that's what would make or break it, where it's like, actually, this is not entertaining and kind of dumb. Reclamation of Moria, linked campaign kind of thing would be really cool, I don't think there are any I think there were old White Dwarf scenarios where that was sort of officially
made. I think, and we also read through them and they weren't super interesting, but I think we could make a pretty good linked campaign for that.
And one of the ones that we've talked about doing, and we talked about doing before we even started filming Battle Reports, was our own named heroes linked campaign of, we talked about doing it because we were sort of initially going to try and do this around the War of the Rohirrim release, and the new edition was like, other places, other Rohan captains have usurped, and there are Rohan civil war, right? Basically with hill tribes, and so you have a small town led by whoever. Sam Dread, we can say. Sam, anyway, whatever. Come up with some dumb names, give them some dumb special rules, and then do like this is the town there, or there's a scouting mission. They've been ambushed by the wild men. Now the wild men are laying siege to the town, and then the next game it's like here's the same town with a bunch of burnt down buildings. Maybe the Rohan are trying to retake the thing, and some cool stuff like that where they sort of maybe the characters progress, maybe they don't, and do sort of like if you win this, if they win that. I think that would be very cool. I think, and then I have a hilarious idea for doing Khazad-dûm versus Erebor Reclaimed. I'll play the treasure hoard scenario because both Durin and Dane have been seized by dragon sickness. I think would be very
Gold fever.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, those are some of the ones that like there's no real plan to do, except in the dark cobwebby corners of my mind, and then the other part of that is I really would love to make a whole Shelob lair board.
That would be super cool.
Do that scenario would be neat, but just I think to play normal Lord of the Rings in a game in a board where it's like nothing above an 80 mil really, or 80 mils don't really fit, 60 mils do because Shelob, or I guess 80 mils would have to because she's now on an 80.
We can make our own game, Cirith Ungol Civil War, where the orcs are fighting each other, but then Sam, Frodo, and Gollum are on the board moving around doing something.
Yeah,
they're also moving around.
I just think doing any game of Lord. I mean, imagine like seize the prize.
It'd be
Or-
like Zone Mortalis.
yeah, exactly. I think it would be super cool, and maybe you come up with rules.
It'd
for
be
the
interesting
combat
to do an
to
event
through.
and get like a
Yeah,
couple of Sheila boards, a couple of
couple of
Goblin
sewer
Town boards.
boards.
Do like Sewers Beneath Us Gilead
Yeah,
if you were feeling inventive, or like I don't
yeah,
know the thick tangles of Mirkwood, like you strayed off the path and now you're fucked.
yeah, yeah. I think it'll be super cool. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, and it probably means that some scenarios need to be tweaked, and some I mean, like Fellwargs would be absurd in that because you can charge around corners. But
Yeah, but also the big base would be like super obnoxious.
yeah,
The
yeah.
cavalry base in a tunnel would be like
And I think you'd need to you need to design the boards to where there were some tunnels that were like 80 mils can fit, and
yeah,
then some tunnels where it's like big enough for not big enough for a 40, but not like 30 to 35 millimeter wide, so you can have a couple of guys try and
yeah.
get around the flank and stuff. I think that would be super cool. One of the big issues with any of that is storage, right? Like, where am I
Yeah,
going to
for
store
sure. That's a
it?
difficult one to store.
Yeah,
You want to hear my crazy 2,000 point Blackgate Opens list that I wrote?
sure.
All right, so we got the Mordor Troll Chieftain, the Mouth
Yeah.
of Sauron.
Yeah.
Obviously, both their warbands are full. Mordor Troll Chieftain has a banner in his warband there, and they're all full of Moran and Orcs. Then we've got two of Ringwraith C on the Fellbeast with the Morgul Blade. They've both got full warbands as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have three more Mordor Troll Chieftains, each of them with a full warband and a banner behind him. So there are four banners, a total of four trolls, two Ringwraiths, the Mouth of Sauron, a total of 96 models, so about 88 Moran and Orcs, I think.
Nice.
88, 90 Moran and Orcs, something like that. Four of them with banners.
Yeah.
So like you said, if I was building a 2,000 point army of Blackgate Opens, I don't know that we would have four banners. I also don't think I
No,
would.
I think
But
three.
having one behind each troll doesn't feel terrible,
Yeah, I think I would want to see some regular trolls. I think I would be tempted to downgrade, like, maybe do three troll chieftains, so the super chief and his two lieutenants, and maybe it's one or two ring wraiths, or definitely one, maybe two, but then put a couple of orc captains in there, maybe drop a banner and put like two Mordor trolls in. Just because Mordor
I
trolls
think, you'd need like two or three orc captains at that point because drop a banner and a troll, or a banner, downgrading a captain to a troll and dropping a banner is
But 90.
And I also, like I said, I had two more. I ran out of points, so I put Morgul and Warband slots. So I put Morgul blades on both the Reds and Felvies.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be
over
super,
100 models pretty easily.
I think that would be a super cool army. Then the question sort of becomes on the opposite side of that is, like, what do you play that into? Because
I wonder how many Moran and Orcs we have.
More
Probably
than that.
a lot, right? Like how many boxes of?
I don't know.
I feel like we counted it up, and it was something like 96 one time.
I think it's more than that. I think
Hold on,
many have been cut up, but I think we ended up with at least three, if not more, Battle for Osgiliaths, right?
Or in there.
I think there were 36. Maybe there were only 24. It was probably only 24. But then previously, what was the box before that?
Pelennor Fields.
No. Wasn't there an in between? Maybe it was Pelennor Fields. But it's a chunk of, and then I won at least one. I took some for some various events. We probably have enough Moran and Orcs. If maybe we need to buy one box, but I would be surprised.
I don't think we need to buy any Moran and Orcs to do that. We need to paint a lot of Moran and Orcs.
Which they paint fairly quickly. It's more what slows me down on the Moran and Orc front then is the converting all of them, because basic models.
Yeah, you just have to abandon that for the 2,000 point game, Sam.
Yeah, I would probably convert up to like, I'll find out how many I have, and then it would be like, okay, I would like 50 Moran and Orcs, because that will take care of my army of Gothmog up to blah, 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 points, and then the rest of them are just like, yep, here they go. As it is. All right. Well, now, Ben, we're just going to keep rambling and waffling. I don't know. I feel like this is probably not going to be a very interesting episode, but it is. We can say we're tired after 100 episodes. Talking about what we have coming up for filming. So this is in no specific order of what's going to be released when, but we talked about doing Riders of Theoden versus the Grand Army of the South, or Horde. You know, a little horse versus serpent. I think is that the name of the horse and the serpent? I think is a name.
That might actually be the name of the chapter. Yeah,
I think it is. It's not versus. I think it is just the horse and the serpent. We talked about doing Pits of Dol Guldur versus the Iron Hills.
That'd be good.
I think that would be kind of interesting. And then we talked about doing Atop the Walls versus Minas Morgul. A garrison of Athilion versus Harad again. Perhaps this time the Haradrim have brought a Mumakil.
Yeah, we've been trying to figure out a way to get a Mumakil on the channel. Yeah. We have one painted, and he's got to find something to rampage against without being completely one-sided. It's the trouble with a Mumakil. They're often not very dynamic games in that it's going one way or the other. It's either the Mumakil is running over everything, or it has just died and now the game is finished for the Mumakil player. So we're trying to find a way to get a Mumakil on here and have it still be interesting.
Yes, Muster of Isengard versus Defenders of the Hornburg. A little bit of portaling in, portal away. No, a little Saruman from or Helm from the past has come to defend, to attack Saruman. He's been betrayed, something like that. Minas Tirith versus Minas Morgul. Always Denethor, always looking to expand his territory.
Yeah, who is the greatest Minas of all?
Yes.
Minas on the wall. Palantir on the pillar. Who is the greatest Minas of them all? It's something there.
Well, I think if it's of all, it needs to be on the wall.
Yeah, so. It does. Palantir on the pillar struck me as...
Yes.
And then I realized it didn't work, yeah.
Yes. And then we talked about doing a Barad-dûr versus the Grey Company. Sauron has reclaimed the ring, and Aragorn is trying to stop him again.
Aragorn and his brethren have become a strike force now.
Yeah. Usurpers of Edoras versus Isengard of some flavor. What if Wolf had won the war in Rohan and his descendants were fighting for the Westfold?
Wolf the Fifth has returned.
Yeah. Then we want to do the Battle of Greenfields versus the Ravengers of the Shire, because that'll be comical.
That's always got to be entertaining.
And then we talked about doing Army of Gothmog versus the Besiegers of the Hornburg. Again, Wolf the Fifth, High Lord of Rohan and Gondor, could ride against Gothmog, Lieutenant of Sauron.
Yeah, I think that could be highly entertaining. Throwing the Besiegers of the Hornburg and the Usurpers of the Hornburg into random matchups, I think is highly entertaining. That reminds me, though, wasn't there someone with a request? Did you go over this one? Usurpers. This is back to the original topic of this episode, which is Usurpers of Edoras versus Muster of Isengard / Ugluk Scouts or Lurch's Scouts, or for Dominion over the Westfold. So you talking Portal Array, Fracka has come back to be true Lord of the Westfold. And it's him versus the rampaging Uruk-hai. I think that could actually be quite an interesting game. Just two big horde armies.
The follow-up
was... One gets spears, one gets fight for, but Fracka gets fight for too. Mm-hmm.
The follow-up was that they just want to see Saruman pay for his Crebain crimes as more Crebain attack him, which I thought was very good. So
yes, that's a good as well.
Yeah, so plenty of options, lots more to come. Hopefully some or all of that sounds interesting, and hopefully this episode was vaguely interesting. I think it's interesting, and I would certainly, given that we make videos and battle reports, I would certainly be interested to hear what other people's thoughts, feelings, and how they go about doing that stuff is. Mm-hmm. So, if you make your own, if you're thinking about it, I guess there's some of the behind the curtains the great and powerful Oz has revealed of how we go about doing it.
Yeah, I think Yeah, it would be interesting to hear how other people do it. And also, and like I said earlier on, interesting to hear, are people bothered by the mismatched bases in our armies? Does that break the wall of continuity for you? Are you bothered by seeing a lot of repetition? If we have Army of Gundabad on here every other week, you guys going to get sick of Army of Gundabad? We're not going to do that, so you don't have to worry. Sam would never let me play that much Gundabad on the channel. Just kidding.
How do you know that? I'm pretty sure I play more Gundabad on the channel than you do.
Yeah, no, I think at this point that's probably true. Especially coming up Adepticon way, this coming up here.
Yeah, so Ben, unless there's anything you want to add, I think we can call this an episode. It feels a little bit like weird to call this an episode. It is.
Does, but we've rambled on for almost an hour here, Sam. I think the only thing worth mentioning is that we're going to be coming back with some battle reports in the coming weeks. Sam and I are on our way to Adepticon. We're going to be playing some doubles. We're going to be both playing in the grand tournament. So I imagine there'll be a few episodes where we talk about Adepticon and more battle reports. So we look forward to that in the coming weeks.
And hopefully, one day soon, Games Workshop will release something new for this game that will be worthwhile talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. We can but hope.
Until then, thank you so much for listening. And we will be back in 2 short weeks with another episode. Thank you for listening to Gondor Calls for Ale. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. We, at Gondor Calls for Ale, are officially sponsored by the Baron of Dice, the producer of premium wargaming dice. These beautifully hand-swirled resin dice have no micro bubbles and are therefore perfectly balanced. With over 3,000 variants and unique designs, nearly every tabletop gaming system is represented. So check out the description of this episode for a link and a discount code. Go buy yourself some new dice and let the good times roll. We at Gondor Calls for Ale are not associated with Games Workshop, New Line Cinema, or the Tolkien Estate. We hope we have not misrepresented or offended anyone. These recordings are strictly recollections of games we've played and are not commentaries on the character or competence of our opponents. They are intended purely for entertainment, and we hope they will be taken as such. You can find us on Patreon, see the link in the description. Supporting Gondor Calls for Ale there helps us continue to produce these episodes. You can find us on Instagram at Gondor_calls_for_ale. Feel free to send us a message there. Or on Facebook as Gondor Calls for Ale, another great place to send us a message. Or you can send us an email at gondorcallsforale@gmail.com. As Boromir, Captain of the White Tower, once said, remember today, listener, today this episode was good.